All right, and now if everybody will help me bring to the stage for the main presentation, Tim Olson from the Chicago Film Office.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tim Olson, and I'm with the Chicago Film Office, the Department of the Cultural Affairs and Special Events. And we are the city's agency responsible for supporting Chicago's film and TV industry through permitting and city services support. So because of that, I'd like to thank Filmscape for having us here for our keynote, because that'll lead into our main topic here. We're also charged with helping grow the local industry, now the 4th largest in the U.S., along with key partners such as the Illinois Film Office and the Illinois Production Alliance. With the environmental crisis growing ever more urgent, we have the opportunity to steer the industry to greener, more sustainable practices. Sustainable practices in filmmaking is not only better for the world environment, but also cleaner for the communities that host filming, showing that the industry is not Hollywood taking over, but rather a cooperative and respectful use of public space. It is imperative that we join the global movement to transition to sustainable filmmaking. Green filmmaking practices should not be an initiative, but the standard for all filmmaking. And I'm not a public speaker and I use paper, I'm so sorry. So sustainability, excuse me. Our instinctual responses are geared towards immediate dangers, leaving us less attuned to unforeseen threats. A big term to know in this conversation is carbon emissions. The carbon dioxide released by humans that traps heat, creating global warming. Our industry releases an astronomical amount of carbon emissions. And we're excited to empower you with the knowledge and tools our industry is integrating into its processes for climate rescue action. For reference to the fact on this slide, trees that take carbon dioxide out of the air, mix it with water, and make sugar and oxygen. Not this slide, it was another slide. Sustainability in film aims to minimize production's environmental impact on and off the screen. This involves using renewable energy, reducing waste, and employing eco-friendly materials and promoting sustainable transportation. Films can also integrate sustainability into storytelling. And for our panel discussion, I would like to welcome our panelists here with us today. We have Ellen White with EcoFixer, who's fixing one thing right now.
Technical difficulties, apologies.
Yeah. Welcome, Ellen. We also have Andrea Staley. Oh, Ellen. We also have Andrea Staley, Clean Tech Advisor, and Carolina Pose from Columbia College. And to intro us into our topic, we do have one video to show here.
Hi, I'm Kihui Kwan, and I play Marvin Gable in Love Hurts.
52A, take one!
One of the main themes of this film is actions have consequences. That's one of the reasons it was so important for us to be mindful of the actions we took on set, especially around sustainability.
My name is Cynthia Burke, and I am the eco-specialist on this NBC Universal production. We have 3 goals, actually. Waste diversion, which means that we are looking at recycling, focusing our waste management. We look at donations, doing buybacks, working with the assets department so that we keep as much out of the landfills as possible, and power usage and management.
On the soundstage, production upgraded the electric infrastructure, which allowed for us to use clean hydropower instead of large generators, which will help benefit future productions as well. We used multiple electric and hybrid vehicles. We also try to find ways to show sustainable behaviors, like riding on a bike.
It will absolutely take all of the members of our community to work together to set a new standard for sustainability.
I really commend Universal and 87 North for taking sustainability so seriously and inspiring the rest of the industry to do the same.
Great. And just so everybody knows, that's not just Universal, Netflix. Everybody really has sustainability on its mind. So that is why we're here to talk about it. My name's Ellen. I'm going to talk about sustainability coordinators. So my company, EcoFixer, what we do is making sure that sustainability is thought about every step of the way. From the start, we're hiring professionals to handle everything. Because it really demands education and training, as well as outreach and coordination, that everybody is pretty busy on set and really truly isn't able to do all of the things. So our guidance really helps them smooth, unobtrusive transition into this new wave, if you will, of filmmaking. All right. So when we're at the prep, this is where it's really key, because if you start from the beginning, it's going to just infiltrate the entire crew, camera, all of that. And so you start with the story, prep, budget, make sure you're thinking about these, make sure you're incorporating them. And then you're just making sure that all the departments are also aware of it. And that's where a coordinator comes in handy, is because we will then be talking to every single department, giving them ideas, suggestions, support to help them figure out what they can do and create a plan that we can execute. Some good things to ask during prep are, what will happen to this resource at the end? Are we just going to throw it away? Can we give it back to the community? Some other things, what is the power plan? That's a really big one, which we will get to. Very excited. All right. Now, during the shoot, as you can see, every single department, there are stuff that you can be doing. And there's great resources. So if you are not able to have an eco coordinator on set, there's Green the Bid, as well as Green Production Guide. They have awesome checklists that you can have. So if you want to be at least focusing on your department, it's a great resource to look at that. But if you are able to have the coordinator on set, what we are doing is we're dealing with the waste diversion, the compost, the recycling. As you saw out in the hallways, we're also coordinating the clean energy data, collecting it, because data is so key in knowing what our impact is. We're also making sure that there's plastic-free waters and monitoring the food safety of the leftovers, because we have all seen how much food gets wasted. It's astronomical. So we really focus on that so that your team can be focusing on their tasks at hand, and we're just there to help. And then finally, we have the crunch time, the wrap. This is where we are talking to everybody, going directly to the department and seeing, okay, before you throw that away, let's find a new home for it. For example, this set right here, they were going to rent a big, huge dumpster. And I was like, absolutely not, we're not going to do that. So I actually found a place, a little small film production company in Arlington Heights that came and took the whole entire set. So none of that had to go into the landfill, and we saved tons of money because we didn't have to rent a dumpster, because dumpsters are expensive. So that is when you're thinking about budgeting. Waste management is kind of a spot that you can incorporate sustainability. All right, now, and the final thing that we do that's really helpful is we make a sustainability report. And what a sustainability report is it talks about the wins, the losses, as well as a brief carbon footprint analysis, sometimes a full carbon footprint analysis. And why this is important is because, again, data is necessary. It's crucial to know our impact, and especially as consumers and policymakers are looking more into this and wanting to know more, it really gets you future prepared for things like, currently, there is a bill in place, hopefully it'll happen, which will have an incentive for sustainability. So you'll get a 5%, I don't know what it actually will be, some type of uplift if you're actually measuring. Because like one thing that is missing from the Chicago area is there's not a lot of data. There's tons of data in New York, California, Atlanta, across seas. They're doing this, they're already incorporating it. So it would just be really helpful for us to know what the impact is in Chicago. How are we doing? And to be honest, like a lot of people in Chicago are doing fantastic stuff on set. I've seen so many art departments that are really paying attention to it and donating what they can. And this is actually just a little bit of relief for them because we're there to help them. But in regards to carbon emissions, I want to just give you, we're going to show you a quick video so you have a better idea of the impact of our industry. All right. Now, next, I'm going to introduce Andrea, and she's going to talk about the big way to reduce carbon, which we all know, diesel generators, all of the diesel from the transportation, that is a huge amount of carbon. So Andrea is our clean tech specialist, if you will. She's going to talk about that.
Thanks. So yeah, I'm Andrea Staley. These pictures are, I'm a production sustainability advisor mentor. Currently, I'm contracted with Netflix. These pictures are from the show Monster that we shot this winter. And on that Haddad's battery is about a 600 amp battery for Basecamp. And then you have the Moxion, which kind of is around the same amperage. And then you have these little volt stacks here. Monster was a unique project because we were out in the middle of godforsaken Illinois and farmland during like really intense temperatures and snow and ice and cold. And then once the snow and the ice went away and the cold stayed, we had frozen mud, which is a completely different way that a lot of productions would operate. So my point with that is when it comes to sustainability, every project that you work on is going to be completely different. So what we did on Monster is completely different than the shows I'm working with now. And my point with that is with this clean tech energy, I think that you need to devise a plan, a power plan. And I think right now what we see is anytime you're on any production, whether it be a commercial, whether it be an indie film, or whether it be a big budget film, you usually are just getting a generator and throwing gasoline at it and throwing money at it and putting it on and just saying, we're just going to run this. And then usually you're going to have, maybe if it's a big production, you have a generator operator who basically just goes there, cables it up, turns it on, and then you have it. Usually with the DP, if you have a lot of amperage needs, you're going to double those amperage needs, which doubles the amount of emissions that a generator is using. So I think that with that in mind, some of the productions that we're working on, it's thinking about it in a different way of dividing your power up. So in every circumstance, whether you're working in extreme cold like we're here, or whether you're working in a desert situation, you have to look at the temperature, your power needs, what you're powering, and how you're moving every day. Because if you're towing that Moxion around, it's pretty heavy. So I think that the way that we're looking at this is going to be a new way to divide up that power. Now that Basecamp battery, so has anybody been on a big film and you walk into Basecamp and it's really loud and it smells like diesel? Have you ever been on a Basecamp that's completely silent and doesn't smell at all? It's amazing. I've actually seen in Albuquerque right now, they have base camps that are completely solar. It's so quiet. And it actually reduces the stress. Like you walk on and you're like, oh, I feel like things are okay. It doesn't feel as stressful because it's just not as noisy. So that being said, on Monster, we use these Basecamp batteries a lot. I got a lot of pushback because it was very cold. And for instance, the Moxion, it bricked up so fast in the cold. And when these things happen, and whenever you have new technology and it fails, everybody's like, well, see, that technology doesn't work. That's why you have to factor in what you're doing, where, and how. So any technology is going to fail if it's not in the right circumstance. The Haddad's Basecamp battery does have heating pads installed in, and so that's what makes it work. But in that case, what we would do is, obviously, we're out in the middle of the cold. This is a big show. There are heavy hitters. We can't have hair and makeup not have water working so they can't wash hair. That's a big deal. So we would start the day off in a generator, get everything up to speed, and then run it off the battery all day. We did that because that was what the temperature was demanding. If you're out in the middle of the desert, it's going to be completely different where you're dealing with heat, and so you're going to have to devise a different plan. I'm working on a show right now in Newfoundland, which is like out in the middle of nowhere where they're doing a lot of boat stuff, and it's like trying to figure out, well, okay, has anybody ever done a show with boats? Because once the boat leaves the dock, it's done. What's on the boat is on the boat. So it's a matter of figuring out, what your power needs are and charging. So another thing is on Monster, we would have a power plan of when you're going to charge the batteries, because everybody's scared that the batteries are going to lose charge, and they will lose charge. But you need to have a plan with that. So for instance, these little volt stacks, I found a home for them with catering, which is so nice. I mean, who likes to walk up to catering and smell diesel and hear it? It's terrible. It's a terrible way to eat. So as with these, they don't last all day, but they can if you have a charging plan with them. So basically, if you're able to find a way to get them charged every day so they're at the capacity that they need to work, and then swap them out if possible. If you're on location, that's not always feasible. Obviously, stage is a little bit better. But if you can find grid power, that's even better. And that's another thing, is tying into the grid at any location. If you're at a location for, let's say your base camp is sitting at a church parking lot for days on end, see if you can tie into the grid there. It's just so much more efficient. So, it's just a matter of, it's a new way of thinking. And I think it's also, a lot of generator operators it's new for them. It's a new thing. This is an expansion of that job. Generator operators are now going to be power managers, which who doesn't want that title? I mean, come on, I feel like everybody's fighting for that title these days. Like, you can also get a cape if you want. That's optional, but but it's a matter of helping everybody. What are you doing? What's the application? I mean, also, I've been to so many sets where with heating and cooling, how many times have you been to a tent where there's a huge generator outside for a little heater? I mean, at one point, there was a huge generator, like an old dog, just burning up fuel right next to the bathroom trailer. And I was like, why isn't the bathroom trailer and the heater on the same generator? You have two generators side by side, just burning up fuel, putting all the CO2 in the air. This could do the same thing. So it's also a matter of departments talking to each other. If you need heating and cooling, a lot of times what people do is they go to the vendor and they say, what generator do we need? And the vendor's going to give you whatever generator they have, and they're going to probably give you the biggest one because they want to make the most money. So who is there saying, this is way too much bang for our buck, let's scale this back? So it's just being mindful of that. And it's also cross departments. So with camera, making plans, what amperage will you actually need? What do you have? And if you need extra amperage, how are you going to have a power plan in place and not just throw money at a big generator? With locations, what are you powering on set? How can we divide that up? With Crafty, with everyone, I think it's just a matter of thinking differently, and it'll take some time.
Great, thank you. Now we're going to introduce Carolina, and she's going to talk about her forage in sustainability.
Thank you. I'm Carolina Pose. I'm from Columbia College Chicago and the School of Film and Television. And we launched an initiative 2 years ago. We've learned a lot about what worked and what didn't work. So I'm here to speak a little bit about a culture change within our department to be able to kind of lead with kindness and be very aware of your impact on everything that you do, regardless of your production being very small. So my first interest on green sets came through a course that I took out of Canada. Canada is great in all their incentives and plans. So I took a Zoom class that was called Real Sets, REEL sets. And I started learning about what options were available for us and how I could implement to a minor scale in the classroom. So we launched the Green Sets Initiative, and I teach advanced production. So I teach BFA production, which is the highest level of production. We're talking about 35 to 45 students a day in every production, and we do around 12 to 17 productions a semester. So it is pretty big, and their budgets range between $3,500 all the way to 10 grand per film. So we have some flexibility, and there was waste. We could see it every day. So I decided to do a little bit more research after taking this course, and I learned about the Green Film School Alliance, and I joined the Alliance. So if there are any film students here that are not involved in our program, that would be something that you may consider trying to advocate within your own departments to see how you can do things a little bit greener. It doesn't require a lot of work if you have the knowledge and the interest and care for it. Let's do it a little bit better together. And that's kind of what the attitude with the school. So the Green Film School Alliance, just for those of you who do not know, there is something called, and Ellen mentioned, the Green Production Alliance. And they started in, I want to say, 2022, 2021, and it came out of film schools like the American Film Institute and others in California. Then they expanded with the East Coast in schools in NYU and so forth. The Midwest was abandoned, and Columbia College was the first one to join the Alliance. So we learn what are the best practices. To be in part of the Alliance does not require any money, just your time. They share with you a ton of resources, including the checklist, which I'll talk in a second. And that's kind of the basis of what is it that we can do together, little by little, because again, it's a culture change. It has to be an afterthought that you're recycling. It should not be an effort in a way. And I think we're not there yet, but we are seeing changes. And I think with the young generation, with you in the classroom, students, you practice these things as an afterthought sometimes. So sets are a workplace. Do it in the workplace, the same things that you do, and you can always do better and better. So that was kind of the attitude of implementing this initiative. And so I joined this alliance, and I was a little bit like, oh my God, there's so much to do. Where do I begin? This is so intimidating. I have no idea about the calculator. How am I going to do all of that? But after I started talking with other faculty, there's so many film schools now that have joined the alliance. And so you meet every quarter. You sit in a 2-hour Zoom meeting. You call in student ambassadors that work with students from other film schools from around the world, and you share resources together and stories together of what worked and what didn't work. What works at Columbia College may not work at AFI. It's a different kind of school, the size, the number of productions we do, things like that. So I learned about what we could do that could be tangible and could be effective on a small level. And so we created this initiative. And we did a checklist that, based on my experience teaching on advanced productions, we could tell this is something that we can target. So we divided into 4 different departments. Production is the one that has the highest checks to mark. Then you have art department, you have G&E, and then the last one I can think of, development, obviously, storytelling. So a lot of the students create green stories or eco stories without really knowing it, right? Sometimes, and character development. It happens already, and I think that's a good sign, right? That this is just their behavior. So those are the four areas that I decided to focus on. The first year, I made it voluntary. I said, here's a checklist. If you guys want to do it, it's great. You're gonna, whatever you can do is great. It was not as effective. The second, because people were lazy. Like, why recycle? It's gonna take more work, or it's gonna need more money, or things like that. So the second year, I decided to make the change and make it mandatory. And although the students, and these are the advanced productions and also the intermediate productions. So we made the sustainability coordinator mandatory. And it's a PA. Instead of being a PA, now you're going to share that job with a sustainability coordinator. You're going to meet with your AD and your line producer. Have a plan of how you're going to implement these checklists. Go through it together. When your safety meetings, right in the morning, when you begin shooting, remind everybody that this is a green set, that this is where you recycle, this is where you compost. These are the things you need to remember. Again, it's a culture change. So that it started to pick up speed, and now the MFA students started using it for their thesis projects. And little by little, I'm saying, I don't expect you to check everything on the checklist, but if you do 10 or 15 of those, it's better than none. So that's always, it's a little bit of a challenge, but it got better and better, again, with culture change. So that's what we are doing right now. I think we're getting better at it. We do have some challenges, obviously, generator, the truck. There's limitations. Obviously, the budgets of the students, sometimes it's not give them, as much as if they wanted to, like what Andrea was talking about. It would be great to be able to afford that. We're not there yet. But regardless, little habits, like the water bottle. We asked the cast and the crew to bring their own water bottle, so we don't waste money on empty bottles that are super toxic and also wasteful for your budget. So if you're spending $150 on water, that $150 can go in your screen, and you save a ton of money that way. So the logic behind it, you care about the environment or not, the attitude is also just be smart about where your money goes. And so we're very proud of this new initiative. It's still in baby steps. We learn every semester some new things of how we can do things better. But even on the call sheet, now you have a sustainability coordinator mandatory on the call sheet. The title of the project is on green font to let everybody know this is a green set, and these are the basic rules that you should be aware of. And people go with the flow, It impacts everything, and it makes things easier and better. It really does. So anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what they're doing is really setting them up for working with the major studios, because that is what they're doing, So I applaud you for taking that initiative when in the mess. I know, it's hard to take that step and be like, no, we're doing this. So yes to that. I wanted to really quick before we jump into jump into the Q&As, mention some benefits of this. In addition to cost savings, there are also a lot of ways it's a great marketing value. Obviously, that film, there's many of those. You can go find one from Wicked. There's all of these other ones that are on there. But there's also sustainability awards. There's an organization, EMA, Environmental Media Association, that gives out green and gold seals for sustainable productions. And what's really cool about that, how many of you here are students? Great. Just so you know, if you have a film, what is exciting is you don't have to pay for the application fee. So that's a way to really, and that's something too that you can say, see, look, I have a gold seal. I have an Emma gold seal. So that's gonna really shine for you. So I just wanted to add that, but let's go ahead and move on to the Q&A. We're gonna have these here just so you can read some action steps that you can take as you leave.
Hello, hi. I'm Jenny, and I just have a couple. It's Chicago specific, but it's a two-part question. So first of all, as more virtual production comes here, I'm wondering if you've seen any trends as far as what that impact has on sustainability. And then the other part of it is. Chicago doesn't have any prop warehouses, and I heard that that is something, you know, that larger productions utilize. And is that something that we could bring to Chicago, which would also positively impact sustainability, or is that a trick? Like, is that just in my brain that that would help?
I will address the virtual production portion of it. Just so you know, virtual production is fantastic for sustainability. I know that there's a lot of power to it to like actually put it up, but it massively reduces the carbon footprint because you don't have all the trucks, you don't have as many crews, so you're not having to pay all the crew. You're also not going, if it's like an outdoor thing, you're not going and destroying the land and then having to repair it, because that's something too, like you got to be regenerative. So if you're going in and like getting all of these vehicle trails, you're making sure that you're taking care of it, of the nature and the environment. So that's, as far as virtual production goes, it's amazing, and I highly recommend. I know that there's benefits to being outside, but it's also just more friendly for the community too, because we're not going and disturbing their peaceful neighborhoods. And then, do you want to discuss props?
Sure.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you about everything you just said. It's also a controlled environment. So if you're out, if you do something on, like, not on location, it just makes it so much easier to be able to know what power you're going to need, and then, you know, not have light delays or, you know, wind delays or anything like that, or making the neighbors mad because they can't park their cars. But the props, we have a few prop houses in Chicago. We have Probabilities, I think Zaps, and ISS. ISS isn't here in Chicago. But I know we also, on a lot of productions, especially if it's the same studio, like Netflix is being really good about, once a show is wrapped, then we contact the other shows to say, hey, what do you need? Do you want to buy some of these things? It's also good, you know, one thing about props is that knowing what your plan is, again, having that prep. But yeah, there are a few here in Chicago. And I know that some of the bigger shows, like the Chicago shows, have, I think they have Lockup at Cinespace, where they have a lot of set deck prop stuff.
They do, yeah. Yeah. But agree, like knowing that those resources is also super helpful of like, hey, because renting is truly the greenest thing that you can do, you know, because you're not putting one more thing into the environment.
All right. Hello. Sorry about that. We've kind of, or more specifically you, kind of went over a lot of how all the sustainability and all of the efforts to reduce carbon emissions relate to larger sets. But seeing how, especially in Chicago, there's a lot of emphasis on smaller independent productions, usually, you know, it could be as little as like 2 to 5 people, be it student or be it just a group of friends wanting to make a film. How do you would say all of the sustainability practices could best translate to a much smaller production?
You know what's great about tiny, small, independent films is you naturally have so much sustainability baked in, because like you're working on a dime. You have to like scrimp and scramp and borrow, you know, so like you have kind of a heads up on, like a leap ahead of others. But there are other things like no plastic on your sets, no plastic water bottles, obviously is a big one. But you can also go to Green Production Guide and see all of those checklists and figure out what you can do, what is in your budget. Recycle is a really easy, approachable, free in Chicago, if you're able to. There's also food composting. There's some food drop-offs that you can do that is completely free here in Chicago. Granted, it's just all you can put is food scraps, but still, that is still something. And if you do have leftover food, which I imagine there's not usually a lot of leftover food, But if there is, donating it to charity and donating anything that's at the end. Just the idea is just like being mindful of what we're doing and like, okay, how can we, like what we are doing is like creating art, you know, so how can we do it and not be destructive? And the like scrappiness of independent films really requires community and collaboration. So that's really, I hope that helped answer that question.
If I can add to your point. The Green Production Guide there's a lot of resources there that maybe you feel like this is too much for me to do, but you don't feel the obligation of having to do all of it. Just pick whatever you think it's doable and effective within your means, and that will be your first step. So I highly recommend to start there. That's where we started, and it really helped us. So we made adjustments to our checklist based on our needs. You just do the same thing. You know, what is tangible that you can complete? And then have somebody as a sustainability coordinator. I'm a huge advocate of just looking into some of our students that are coming out of, you know, knowledge with these bases in our productions. They will work directly on independent films in a heartbeat because they've already had that experience. So this list is being created, and I'll work with Ellen to be able to create more and more names so that you have a longer list.
Hello. In terms of recycling, personally, I love like rinsing out my containers really thoroughly and everything like that before I put them in my recycling in my apartment building. But then I go down the next day and someone's put a TV or an office chair into the recycling bin. So I'm curious, when you go to all these efforts like this on a larger set, are you working with a recycling company that's bringing just your stuff directly to their center for processing? Or is it possibly being contaminated with someone else who doesn't care as much? Obviously, for a smaller set, that's a larger challenge, but I was wondering if you could talk about that.
Yeah, so I typically hire a company, a waste hauler, to come pick up the recycling and the compost, and I pick a vendor. That part of that too is like finding vendors and materials that are aligned with your values, and I make sure that it's a vendor that I know is going to recycle it. And we also, again, like you said, rinse things if they're super dirty, try to make sure that there's not contamination. I want to address the electronics in there, just so everybody is aware. Please do not put your electronics in the recycling or the landfill. It's actually illegal. But there's amazing resources out there to recycle them. But I do feel your frustration when you go to recycle and you see that. If they're bigger items, the companies will usually pull them out. They have great sorting. Like I've been to at least LRS, and they have a huge sorting process that includes machines and so many people that are physically picking everything to make sure it's all being recycled. So, and then they sell that material. So that's their incentive to like make sure they're recovering as much as possible.
I agree. It's all about your vendors. We have different waste sorters that will process recyclables, and then compost vendors. Like in New York, there's a lot of compost vendors, and that's a specific receptacle set up on set and in a production office that sorts it itself, and then either they pick it up and deliver it to a chicken farm.
I love that.
Yeah. Or we take it to them. So it's all about setting up your vendors and then making clear-cut signs. Because on set, everybody is running on fumes, and they're gonna throw their pop cans, as we like to say in the Midwest, and wherever they want to go. So it's just about creating clear signs and maybe having somebody there to direct everyone and get those habits formed.
And advocating and helping people. Just sharing, oh, hey, just so you know, that doesn't go there, it goes here. I'll help you out. You know, just being, I think we have to be very kind and approachable to this. And if you help somebody that actually like engages them and they want to, oh, okay, they want to know a little bit more about it. So that's.
Hi, my name is Ying, and I am a Columbia student. So I already learned about the green set from Carolina, and it is very helpful. And I also worked in other schools student set as well, and I was trying to emphasize on the recycling and the green set kind of things, but their students seems not very interested in it because their professor never mentioned about that. So I want to know, like, how do I deal with this situation? Thank you.
Yeah, it definitely is a collective effort. And one big thing is just advocate, letting your higher ups know this is something that's really important to me, because it is, it's kind of like if the producers are into it, but the crew's not, it's not gonna work. If you have a producer that's able to lead and get the crew on board, that's where it's gonna work. And vice versa. If you have a crew that's like really gung-ho and just not saying anything, then it's not gonna happen. But if like crew collectively is like, this is important to us, we need this to be happening, the producer, it's just like this give and take of trying to get everybody on board. And I get you, sometimes you just gotta do what you can do on your part, and sometimes they see what you're doing, and hopefully it will trickle on.
It will not hurt to make the suggestion to the producer and the AD. As soon as you have an opportunity, throw the idea. Like, I have experience with green sets. How do you feel about trying to do some of it, implementing some of these ideas in another student production? You have the means, you have the knowledge, you're helping them, you're leading with kindness, all of that helps. So you may not get it exactly as you wanted, but don't hesitate to bring it up, because that's how we spread the word and help people out.
That actually leads me to a question. Who are we seeing is driving the green initiative on a particular set? Are we seeing these from individuals who are wanting to make these active choices, or are we seeing these as initiatives from corporate down?
It really depends. Sometimes, I mean, with Netflix, we have a whole fuel reduction allowance that is a budget separate from the project's budget that Netflix will pay for any green initiative overage that you would pay outside of it. So it promotes producers to be able to use, they'll pay for the batteries. If you have a solar trailer, they're not going to pay for the trailer, they're going to pay for the overage of the solar on it. They're not going to pay for the fuel, but they'll pay for hybrid cars, the rental of those cars, which is going to take that out of your budget. So with that in mind, producers love that. If it's coming from the producer, absolutely. Also, if it's coming from number 1 on a call sheet, which happens a lot, or even number 2 on the call sheet, which I have a film right now and they're pushing, that's a big deal, and they see it. And they are big voices. Everybody's going to go with what they want to say. Also, it does come sometimes from the crew. If you have department heads who are really wanting to be sustainable, which actually set deck and art are usually the first ones to be like, where can we donate all this stuff? Because we see everything. And then catering also. I mean, I donated every single lunch. Every day was donated to the homeless on Monster, out in the middle of nowhere. And catering was all on board. They don't like throwing away this food. So, in that respect, if somebody is giving you pushback, you don't want to, you're not going to be able to convince them with vinegar. That's just never going to happen. So it's kind of like, maybe point out, like, look at this large pile of garbage. Isn't it ugly? Or, I mean, exactly. Or what Netflix, their log line, I guess, is we want to tell stories to the world, but we need a world to tell stories to. Woo! So, I mean, it's kind of where we're at.
And to point out the first on the call sheet, this is also another way to get higher talent, because they're wanting to work in these kinds of environments. So I believe you had a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Next. Yeah.
So I've been working on sets for quite a few years now, but a few years ago I transitioned to post-production. And you guys talked a lot about, on set and even some pre-production stuff, but not as much as post. For example, I know a lot of smaller sets. Most of the sets I work on actually is just 1 or 2 people in post. But right now I'm working on one with 3 visual effects artists, a colorist, a couple of editors, and they're all spread around the country. What are some sustainability practices you have for the post-production side?
So some things, so you're obviously in an office environment, so it'll be very similar to what you would do in an office environment, making sure that trying to go digital with everything. No, don't print stuff. Try to have recycling and compost in your kitchen area. Another big thing is hard drives, trying to reuse hard drives. I know that's not always in your power, but if it is possible, reusing those hard drives and using LTO tapes is really helpful. Yeah, so that's a bit, and that post-production is a growing thing that they're starting to really more incorporate. And if you go to Green Production Guide, they actually have a whole checklist for post-production and a whole, actually it's Green the Bit, I apologize. Green the Bit has a whole section on post-production specifically, so that's cool. Great question.
Okay, so I went to Columbia College, and so what you're saying, I worked on many MFA sets and BFA sets, and I'm a mixer. Originally from Seattle, and moving here to the Midwest, it was a really stark difference in how we value recycling, composting, and I mean, I grew up on this stuff, reuse and recycle, and so I'm really happy that the Green Initiative is happening on sets, because I always bring my own water bottle. I'm always looking for a place to fill it up. I have to pour a water bottle inside of another water bottle. I don't know. I feel so weird. So I also am, I don't like food waste either, and so much of that goes to waste. I'm curious, like, with Crafty and all that, well, there's so many, like, bags of chips and bags of this and bags of that. Like, how do you mindfully think about how to feed your crew, like, sustainably?
Are you speaking, like, from the catering perspective?
Yes,
or
catering. Yeah, catering and Crafty, and kind of like how. Yeah,
okay.
like, do you guys kind of focus on working with, like, who's in your community, kind of like an impact producer type of,
That's
which I
essentially,
learned.
yeah,
Exactly.
the eco coordinator does that. That's part of their job, is to, like, be making sure that the food safety is there, so it's not going bad, and we're getting it refrigerated ASAP so that we can then deliver it to the community. We're also making sure that we're trying to reduce beef, which is real hard here. So I'm like, let's baby steps. But even trying to default veg, making veggie dishes the star of it all. And in regards to Crafty, I've seen some amazing sustainable Crafty setups that are all just like individual things that because the snack wrappers of it all is just a lot. So there are ways to do that. And then just finding the nice thing is, like, if you are on a set and you don't have an eco coordinator, a good company to reach out to is Rescuing Leftover Cuisine. They are really awesome. What they do is they come pick up the donations and take it to a charity that's directly in the neighborhood that you're affecting, which I love, because that's less carbon and also giving back to the community. So.
There's Rock and Wrap It Up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll do the same thing. And when it comes to Crafty, there's so many. That's a tough one, because especially post-COVID, everything is individually wrapped, and it kind of has to be individually wrapped because people will put their grubby hands in there, and that's kind of gross. But there are ways to get around that, and I have seen some too, where Crafty will set certain things up and then have tongs. And hopefully people will,
Tongs and compostable containers that they can put it in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think I see that as a full mindset shift. As I've seen best practices with craft service. It's not individually wrapped, it's in baskets, you've got the tongs, you've got all that. But then you have a couple company moves in a day, it all gets thrown out the window. Then you're just throwing out the boxes of the prepackaged and all that. And it's the mind shift of, I'm gonna do it as long as I can, but when this machine is moving faster than I can keep up, I'm going to break down to my basic instinct of let's just have box snacks. So I see it as we move forward, as we shift our mindset, that will no longer be the default to back up into these individually wrapped. It will be everybody's mindset of, we have to have enough time for Crafty to set up. And hopefully that's the shift.
I also suggest try, like, the last day. If you have multi-day shoot, so some student projects may just shoot one day, and so you just have the limitations of that. But if you have a 3 or 4 day shoot, the last day, make it no cow, no cow products. Make it no snacks like that, but healthier snacks. Nobody will complain after that because it's your last day. And it works. But at the same time, they want, they got what they wanted, what they liked the other 2 days, and you're slowly changing a culture that they don't miss it as they think they miss it. They only eat it because it's there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you can be really creative in the way that you can kind of turn the culture a little bit.
One more thing. This is happening. I can't believe this is. I always wondered if this was going to happen, and it's happening on a show. I have a show that they're using dishes, and they have people doing the dishes. And I always thought it would be a really funny joke to be like, I work in the film industry. What do? I do the dishes. But I think that's something that should be integrated. It's, it's another crew member, which I'm all about. Get another crew member, pay another person. Yes, you have to have a dishwasher. That's something that then you have to have power for. So you have to figure out your reduction. You have to do the math. But if you do the math and you don't, do you have any idea how much gets thrown away? Yes, the food gets thrown away, but the plates themselves. And I was just thinking, what does the military do? Are they using, do they have like a mess tent? Are they doing, because that's another mobile thing where I'm thinking, why aren't we doing the dishes? It's completely possible.
That's a brilliant question, because a lot of this new technology that we have, and I learned that a lot of like the big power stuff that we have, because our industry requires so much energy, a lot of it originates from the military. They find military equipment and then put it on. So that's a great place to like look into and figure out. Yeah.
So this is a great idea. I shot a film in Kansas. I produced it, and we lived in a farm for 2 weeks, and we went green all the way. A lot of the people the cast and the crew had never done it before. We did a training. We did the dishes, but we also, our gift to the cast and the crew was a set of bamboo forks and knives, and everybody used it. Everybody cleaned it. They put it in their bag. We did not use one plastic fork at all. The waste was so minimal. So again, there's resources out there. You can do it if you think yeah.
By the way, the food truck has compostable
and chopstick
cutlery, so make sure to put those in the green bin.
Well, yeah, I actually had a question that's kind of specific to me in my office. So in the Chicago Film Office, we're permitting for city streets, and we know that Chicago is dense. So we are film sets are cohabitating in people's communities and their environments. And one of the biggest things that I see that can be a call of complaints, or it can be just things that we notice or see, are the generators. Especially as it gets to warmer weather, people's windows are open. Even more, it's where's that generator? How far can we get it away from a house, from open windows? Unfortunately, in Chicago, you're not going to get too far from someone's residence. So how can I, as the Chicago Film Office, help push, or what's your talking points for green generators? Because obviously I assume cost is in there. Cost always comes up. How can we help to support green generators and the noiseless machines there?
Well, batteries are going to help with that big time. I think on the Bear, at one point, they tried to daisy chain a bunch of Moxions because they were shooting in the Gold Coast, and the neighbors just weren't having that noise. It's really noisy. So I think that in that case...
Wait, they were daisy chaining the Moxions?
Mm-hmm.
And they were noisy?
No, not the Moxions. They had a generator.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
I was like,
they had a generator, and it was the neighbors complained. So then they tried the Moxions. And again, it comes to you need to have a plan. I think it goes back to like when we used to shoot film. You had to have a plan because you can't just shoot and shoot and shoot. Film is really expensive, and so we need to think of gasoline like film. You have to have a plan. So maybe if you have a generator, do what you need to do, like maybe have it on during hours that people aren't home. And then when people come home, turn off the generator, turn on the battery, and have a plan. Don't just be, the nice thing about it, the nice thing about a battery is if you do it properly and don't overload it, you can walk away. You don't have to balance your loads. A generator, you have to balance your loads. Like in Chicago, generator operators are literally there if you're on set. they're just gonna be sitting in the truck next to the generator, like sipping their coffee. But they have to balance that load. If you have a generator operator, they're balancing that, then they can easily figure out a plan of when to turn a generator on and when to switch over to batteries. The other thing is, I think that we're just working on a film where they were in on the beach. It was a really high-profile film, and they wanted batteries, and they were freaking out because they were like, we can't put this huge battery in the neighbor's yard. It's going to blah, 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 blah. And I was like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, why are you trying to solve everything with one solution? Divide and conquer. You have all these things that need power. Get all these little batteries. Power everything with the little batteries if you can do that, which they did, and then have a power plan. Be able to swap them out. Watch the charge. You have to balance the load on your generator anyway, so it's easy to walk over to a battery and be like, it's at 55. I have to wait for it to get 30 and then swap it out.
Yeah. And I think we also need to have, that's amazing. And this is why she's here, because I love that, because she's going to be the person that's going to change that for us, one of them. But I think also having any electricians that are working with them here in Chicago to like talk about it and help advocate for it. And that'll also help us get more of the equipment here, because there's a lot of equipment that's not here yet because people just aren't using it. And in regards to independent films and small films, there are small options for you out there. Keynote Works, who's out there, has an option. Just if you want to go talk to them, they don't use any generators on their sets.
Well, one thing is if you get a hybrid vehicle or an EV vehicle in Chicago, there's not as much EV charging stations, so you have to figure something out as far as that's concerned, but that takes away your fuel cost. So if you can get that on board, that's great. The other thing is, in terms of power, like if you're on an independent production, and one way you can also kind of maybe reduce that and make it efficient is if you have a truck and you have, like it's your camera truck. So every day you're taking that truck somewhere to charge those batteries and you're plugging it in. So why can't you also plug in some batteries with that and maybe have, and then you're not paying so much for fuel. So if you're able to put like a volt stack or something like that on that same truck, wherever you're going that night to charge the camera batteries or however you're charging the batteries, you can charge those batteries at the same time and it takes away your fuel cost. And the other thing is like with crafty and with food, how are you refrigerating that? How are you doing that? Is there some way that you can take it, like, do you have a base where you can refrigerate those things? Let's say your holding is at a church, because it's almost always at a church. Then can you ask that church to use their facilities potentially? You might not, or in that case, maybe try to find like a mini freezer or something along those lines to be able to take away from that truck. So I think it's all about like, if you can reduce your fuel costs, then I think that's a good way to go to productions and say, look, do you add up, the next film you do, take your fuel receipts and add them up and see how much that costs. And then start to put that into your budget. And then when you also take all your paper plates, everything, make a non-sustainable budget, and then cross-compare. And then you can take that to your producer and say, look, not only will we be able to get the green badge and say we're a sustainable production, which is good for promoting this, but we're also reducing these costs.
I think we're out of time, but I think that does wrap it up here. But I think what we want to end with is that this is the call to action. I think what we've learned here is there's many things that you can do on an individual basis, on a producer basis, on a company basis. And I think the thing is find out best practices. There's always new ways to do it. We're always learning new ways to do it. There are new products out there. There are new mindsets. There are new initiatives. Take that and run with it. When you are on set as an individual, don't just accept the standard, we're going to throw everything away, we just have to do it as fast and as cheaply as possible. Ask the question. If you're in a particular department, ask, what are we doing about our refuse? What are we doing about recycling? Are we donating anything? What's the budget line for recycling? Like, ask these questions, because especially as producers or other people who might not be thinking about this are hearing their crews ask these questions. They learn more and more how important it is to everybody. And I think it's exciting that we're sort of starting this at an early level, because this never came up when I started at all. It was, how quickly can we throw this stuff away? So hopefully the new mindset is, that we're changing it here, and that 20 years from now, there is like a budget line for a green initiative in everybody's set. And that's what we want you guys to take home today. So thank you very much. Thank you to the panel, and thank you for everybody's expertise. We'll be here for just a few minutes if you have any questions.